Hey guys, today we're going to be doing our test review to get ready for the prehistory test, the first test of the year, which we'll be taking on Friday. So the first thing you're going to want to look at is your notes. And you have 3 sets of notes. Now, if it's possible, the best thing you can do is print out the notes, whether it's the fill in the blank notes or the PowerPoints themselves. And you should do that because you could make notes on the notes, like circling certain items, highlighting, underlining, things like that to draw your attention to it. But I would also log into Google Classroom and skim through the PowerPoints with all the pictures, okay? Because you guys are going to remember pictures much better than words. Many of you will think that studying just means looking over your notes, as in reading them. But that's not the best way to study. You need to be an active participant when it comes to studying. That means you have the information in front of you and you need to do something with it. One of the easiest ways to do that is look at one of the slides in the notes. And as you look at it, see if you can come up with your own questions off of that slide. Because that's exactly how we make tests. We look at the slides and we come up with questions. And if you can do that, you're going to know exactly what will be on the test. And if you can answer the questions that you came up with, and you should be able to do that, you're going to know what the answers are. You can do that by writing down the questions. I think that works best for me. Some people might be able to come up with the questions in their brain and do it that way. Whatever works for you. You're going to have to try out both. And lastly, you should review your notes at least 2 times before the test, probably the morning of the test. So if we look at this slide from our first set of notes, we're going to try to come up with 2 questions. Okay? So go ahead and take a minute in your own time. You can pause the video and try to come up with 2 questions from this slide. And pay attention to the underlined words, because the underlined words are the words that we're probably going to see again on the test. They're underlined because they are vocabulary words. So one of the questions that I would come up with would be, which scientist studies past people using artifacts and fossils? And the answer would be an archaeologist. Another question could be, how long ago was prehistory? And you would go with 5,000 years ago. So as you come up with questions on your own, you're going to know what we will be asking when it comes to the test. The textbook will also play a big role in preparing for the test. You should have completed the 3 reading reviews, and you should have read chapter 1, lessons 1 and 2. If you haven't read them, make sure you go back and do so. If you have read them, I would skim through those sections again before the test. Also, make sure to look for any text boxes, diagrams, and pictures off to the side of the page. Those are going to be important. Okay, there will be pictures on this test as well. And if you've seen them before, it's going to be easy to figure out the answer. And some of the questions come straight from the book. The book is more detailed than our notes, so there will be questions from the book to make sure that you've been reading. The vocabulary will also be important. We gave you guys a list of 34 words for this unit, and you're going to need to know those words in order to do well on the test. I would say that if you knew all the vocab and nothing else about the prehistoric era, just on the vocab alone, you should be able to score an 80 to 85% on the test. And that's without knowing anything else about what's going on historically. You need to practice learning the words you don't understand or recall. Don't spend time on the words you already know. If you know an artifact is any item used by man and it's ingrained in your brain, move on. Focus on the words you don't know. One of the best ways to do this is by making flashcards. Flashcards, once you've made them, you can take out the words that you've already got down and that you know. And that way you can focus on the words you don't know. For me, I like to get a clean sheet of paper and I like to practice writing the definitions down over and over again till I knew the word. Because for me, when I put pencil to paper, That helped me remember the content better. And remember to put the definitions in your own words. Don't go to the back of the book and copy the definition down. You are not likely to remember it. But if you put something in your own words, it's probably going to be shorter and easier to remember. Definitely do not use a Google search or Wikipedia to find definitions. That's not going to be much help on our test. In order to do well, you need to know the big ideas of prehistory. And from these big ideas, you can fill in the details. So what is an archaeologist and what do they use to unlock history? Well, an archaeologist wants to figure out what humans were doing. And in the prehistoric age, they did not have access to writing because people didn't write things down yet. They hadn't learned that skill. So they'll use fossils, they'll use artifacts, detritus, they'll look at ruins in order to piece together what humans were doing. You should know how hominids evolved over time. You should probably know 2 facts about each of our hominids that we covered, starting with Australopithecus, who had opposable thumbs, Homo habilis, the first to use simple tools, Homo erectus, who used fire, Neanderthal, who buried their dead and created cave art, and Homo sapiens. And I would definitely know 5 of the features that Homo sapiens had that made us different or unique from the hominids that came before. You should be able to describe the differences between Paleolithic and Neolithic life. We have a chart that you need to go over and make sure is correct. And you also created a piece of artwork, and that should help you to remember the differences between the Paleolithic age and the Neolithic age. You should know the impact that the Neolithic Revolution had on humanity. And of course, that's where we learned how to farm and domesticate animals. And it had a huge impact as we learned how to now settle into villages because we didn't have to follow herds of animals around. And from there, we get lots of new innovations. We get the wheel, we get the sail, we get artisans who create new things, new tools. We get new inventions. So what we really have is a surplus of food, more than enough, which will lead to specialization of labor and artisans who can create things with the new free time they have since they're not farming, and eventually will lead to a social structure. And then eventually we'll have trade using the barter system between different villages as they turn into cities and eventually distinct civilizations. From there, you should know the 5 characteristics that make up a civilization. Those are in your last day of notes for this unit. And you should be able to describe what life was like in the city of Ur. Ur was in the civilization of Sumer, located in the geographical region of Mesopotamia, the land between the 2 rivers. I would know what those 2 rivers are called and where they're located. I would also know that structure sitting at the center of Ur and what it was used for. So the test will be 30 multiple choice questions along with an essay. The essay will be a 1-paragraph essay. So how many sentences are we looking for? We're looking for 5 to 8 sentences, but at least 5. And what types of sentences are we looking for? Well, we need an introduction, also called a topic sentence, to start off our essay. To finish the essay, we need a conclusion sentence, and then we'll need 3 main ideas, or 3 body sentences. And we'll walk you guys through how to do that. So how do you prepare for an essay question? Well, since Mr. Russo and I are so nice, we're going to give you 2 potential questions that we're going to use on the test. We'll pick one of those 2 to give you. So to prepare for it, you could make an outline or even make a draft of what you're going to write on test day. So an introduction or topic sentence should set up the rest of your essay. You need to be specific about what you're going to discuss in your essay in this introduction. So let's say our essay question is, How did your life change during your freshman year of high school? So a good introduction might be, during my freshman year of high school, my life changed in 3 distinct ways. Okay, it gives you the time period that we're talking about during your freshman year of high school. And then what we're going to talk about in the essay is the 3 ways that your life changed. The body of the essay is where you provide specific details that go back to your introduction. So again, our example would be the first sentence. I have more homework now, so I have to plan out my after-school activities to make sure I can get it done. You're telling us what changed and then how it changed your life. You have more homework, now you have to plan things out better. The second sentence, I can walk to school now, so I don't have to get up as early and get a bit more sleep. It's almost like cause and effect. Something happens, you can walk to school now, and now you don't have to get up as early. So you're providing specific details on how this change of going to high school has affected your life. The last sentence, the tests are more difficult in middle school, so I have to study harder. So all these provide good detail. Okay, if you were just to write, the tests are harder, well, you're not going to get full credit for that because you're not giving us enough detail. Finally, there's a conclusion, and you don't want to make this more difficult than what it should be. A conclusion sentence should restate the introduction in a different way. Do not bring up new ideas when writing a conclusion. So, our conclusion for our sample essay. In conclusion, my life has changed significantly since I have started high school in September. So you're wrapping everything up, you're not bringing in any new ideas, you're pretty much taking your introduction and changing it slightly to make a conclusion. So our possible essay questions, one might be, explain and discuss why the Neolithic Revolution should be considered the greatest achievement in human history. Provide 3 examples to back up this statement. So that's one possibility. The other is explain and discuss the 3 traits early Homo sapiens possessed that made us distinct from earlier hominids. Okay, what is different about us than those who came before us? One last thing about the essay. You should not use I, me, my as you write your essay. Do not write in my opinion, or I believe, or I think. We just want the facts. Unless you have a PhD in this field, what you think really doesn't matter. Even if Mr. Russo or myself wrote a paper about the Neolithic Revolution or early hominids, because we're not specialists, that's not going to matter. So just the facts, no I think or I believe. Finally, some last bit of advice before taking the test. Remember, don't try to cram all the information in one night. Okay, split it up, break it up. You should be spending probably 45 minutes over the next 2 nights studying. You should come up with a plan. If you could break it up even further than that and get ahead, then you should do so. It'll save you trouble later on. Focus on the concepts that are a weakness for you. If you're not good with the different types of hominids, spend more time on that. But don't forget to review ideas that are comfortable for you, like maybe knowing the difference between Paleolithic life and Neolithic life. And when you're done studying and you've done all your work, you should stay positive during the test itself. You've done everything you need to do in order to be prepared for it and do well on it. Okay? So we will see you guys on Friday as we are handling SAT duties today.